Good evening, everyone that is joining us. We will get started in just about a few seconds while we let some folks join. All right, we can go ahead and get started while others are still joining. Good evening, and thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Jen Tremin, and I am with the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership. We are the nonprofit entity for the Atlanta BeltLine. Thank you for joining us for the kickoff of our 2021 Fix That Home Repair series, which is brought to you by the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership, Atlanta Community ToolBank, House Proud, and the Atlanta Land Trust. We started this series way back in 2020, just designed to teach you simple home repairs to save some money and be more secure in your home. If you missed any of those 2020 workshops, don't worry, we have all of them recorded and on our website at beltline.org/empower. You can learn about some simple electrical repairs, HVAC maintenance, basic tool usage, and much more. Really great topics. So tonight we will be joined by CJ Clark, our friends at the Atlanta ToolBank, to learn about some hacks you can do around your home. So we will watch a training video, and then you'll be able to chat with CJ live and ask all of your burning home hacks questions. You can do that by typing them into the Q&A feature you should see on your screen. I'm also really excited that we will be giving away 10 well-stocked toolboxes, courtesy of the ToolBank, to 10 lucky winners. So just keep an eye on your email tomorrow to see if you are one of those lucky few and how you can claim your prize. So now I will let my partners introduce themselves and then we'll get started. So I will pick the Atlanta Land Trust to go first, and then House Proud, and then CJ, if you want to introduce yourself and kick off the video for us. So Adrian, go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adrian. I am with the Atlanta Land Trust. We provide permanent affordable housing in the city of Atlanta. And we want to thank the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership for putting together the Fix That Home Repair series. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. If you are looking for more information on affordable housing, I would like to invite you all to our information session, May 8th. I just put the information in the chat, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, Adrian. Lisa, go ahead.
All right, my name is Lisa Flowers Jones. I'm the Executive Director of House Proud Atlanta. We're a small nonprofit located in the same building with our friends at the Atlanta Community ToolBank. We do no-cost home repairs for seniors, the disabled, and veterans, anything to keep them warm, safe, and dry. So think roofing, plumbing, electrical, floor stabilization. Right now, we have immediately available funding for veterans and for folks that live on the Atlanta's west side, which is around NPUJ, Mosley Park, Grove Park, etc. So we would like to thank the BeltLine for putting this together. We're so glad we can be a part of it. Check out our website at www.houseproudatlanta.org. You can find my contact information and email me if yourself or a friend or neighbor needs no-cost home repairs. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa. And CJ, take us home.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. My name is CJ Clark, and I am the facility manager and the training center manager at the Atlanta Community ToolBank. And the Atlanta Community ToolBank has a tool lending program that is the heart of the ToolBank. And the charitable organizations have year-round access to the ToolBank's inventory of tools and equipment for a nominal fee. We also have our virtual tool training center. That's part of why we're here tonight. And the Tool Training Center is an educational center bringing critical gaps to the areas of tool use, repair and safety, youth and young adult introduction to tools and trades, and disaster preparedness. We also have a monthly adult training class called Crafter Hours. It is always the second Thursday of the month from 6:30 to 7:30. There is a nominal fee for the kits that you pick up from the ToolBank. And an example of a class that we have, the next class is going to be building the suet feeder. And then during the summer, we have a class that's going to be building this plant stand. Then what I believe is going to be a fairly popular class is building this beer bin. We also have, for the kids, we have a class called Tool Lab for Kids. It is on the first Thursday of every month from 4 to 5 p.m. And there are limited supplies for these free kits. And that we're very thankful to our corporate sponsor, the Home Depot, so that we can make this free. And you can just go on our website to register for either one of those. An example of the kids' classes, this was in February. It was like a little cornhole project for kids. And for Easter, we had this cute little Easter basket. And coming up, around Father's Day, we've got a build that's going to be this cute little toolbox. And this is what the kits look like. They have everything you need in them, minus a hammer that you have to supply, and that's it. And with that, I believe we're ready to go.
Great. So I will start the video. It's about 20 minutes, and then just you can type your questions into the Q&A as we go, and we'll answer them afterwards. Or if as we go through you have additional questions, feel free to do that. But here we go.
The Atlanta ToolBank presents Home Hacks, Volume 1.
Don't let that screw get the better of you. Screw. It's stripped. There's no way. I'm not going to get it out with this. It's just not going to happen. Well, I got to get that screw out of there. Let's try pliers. No, that's not going to work. There's nothing to grab onto. That screw is totally flush. What am I going to do? Wait a minute. Someone told me once about a thing called speed out. I'm going to go see if I can find one. I found it. The speed out is pretty easy to use. You use the drill in reverse. You put the special bit in, and you're going to start on one side that looks a little bit like a drill bit. And then you're going to go to another side that looks like it kind of has threads on it. Let's give it a shot. I think this is going to work. Okay. We're in reverse. I'm going to do what they say. Start by drilling out the screw. And it felt like it drilled out. I see some little metal chips. I think it did it. Okay, now let's go ahead, flip the bit over. Now we're still in reverse. I'm going to push down really hard on this. It got it. Did it. I got the screw out. Speed out. It works. This hole is stripped. That's not going to hold. What am I going to do? I know. I remember an old carpenter's trick that an old carpenter showed me a long time ago. Glue and toothpicks. Okay, I got some wood glue here. Got myself some slivers of wood that are kind of like toothpicks. I'm gonna rub them in this glue. Now, stick them in that hole. I'm gonna bend it over to break right there. And I'm going to do at least 2 of these little pieces. I'm going to put in there. Glue's going to help hold them later. Let's put 3 in just for good measure. You know, if this was something else, I could just maybe use a bigger screw, but I can't. It's got to be this screw. It came with this hinge. Okay, let's start that in there. Put my drill on forward. Oh, that's working. Okay. Oh man, look at that. That's nice and tight. These screws can be tightened up too. Oh yeah, there we go. Let's wipe that excess glue off. We are in good shape.
Hanging a picture really can be effortless. Get it in the right place on the first try with a picture stick.
I need to hang this picture. I need to be sure to get it in just the right place. And that can be so difficult sometimes. Where do you put that screw so that that picture is in just the right place? Well, use a picture stick. Just take a stick of wood, install a screw in it, make it stick out just a little bit on both sides. Small screw. Hold the picture on your stick. I've already put this line on the wall. It's where my other pictures are in height. So that's where I want this one to be. So I know I gotta pull that up, and now I know that I gotta just get it centered to the right and left. So that's where I have someone helping me back there. That way? Okay. Tell me when. There? Okay. Now, just take a hammer and give this a light tap. Just like that. Take your frame off. That hole right there is exactly where you need to put the screw.
Air filter is stuck. Arg. No more.
Here I am in my furnace room. I used to have a real hard time getting my furnace filters out of my furnace. I don't so much anymore. Let me show you why. See this tab on the furnace filter? That's just some tape that I put on. I put it on either side of the furnace filter. Now I can pull it right out. Just like this. See how I just stuck the tape on either side of the filter? Do it on both sides.
Scratches in stainless steel. No problem.
Here we are at our kitchen at the ToolBank. We have a lot of stainless steel in this kitchen. We have stainless steel countertops. These countertops have a lot of scratches on them. I'm going to show you how to take them out. What we're going to use is a wet dry sandpaper. I've got about 800 grit here. You can use anywhere from probably 400 to 800 grit. Also got a little block, makes it much easier. I'm going to put the sandpaper on the block and I'm going to wet it. I want to show you all the scratches that are on our countertops to give you an idea of the before and after. I already started the process on this piece right here, and you can already see a big difference. I didn't spend very long on this part. Now, stainless steel has a grain. You always want to make sure when you sand, just like wood, you sand with the grain. And in this particular stainless steel, the grain is going in this direction. Sometimes you got to look kind of close to tell that, but it's pretty easy to see it in this one. It's going in this direction. So we got to sand in this direction. When I'm doing the sanding, one of the things that I want to be sure of is I don't want to just go back and forth like this. I don't want to go in swirling motions. I want to push the sanding block and raise it up, push the sanding block and raise it up. What I don't want to do is go like that, because I'll end up with a little swirl on the end. So just use straight motions, kind of like that. Okay, I'm going to get started. Let's wet the sandpaper. It's looking like it might be getting a little bit dry. I'm going to put some more water on this. One of the things that you may want to know before you do this, if you have stainless steel that's treated with something to keep fingerprints off it, you don't want to do this process because you will remove that film. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to clean this up, dry it out. I'm going to show you the difference between the two. You'll be able to see it. I did spend about 2 or 3 minutes doing this sanding back and forth. Okay, first I'm going to dry it off. And you'll see black on your rag. I'm just using a paper towel. We'll let that dry. It's all dry, and I want you to see the difference between the unfinished and the finished. I do have to go back and finish the rest of this, but for now, I want to put some stainless steel polish on this just to show you how it'll look when it's all done. Use this sparingly. That's more than enough. If you follow the directions on the can, it tells you to spray lightly and then wait 1 or 2 minutes. We're going to wait 1 or 2 minutes. We're going to come back and we're going to wipe it down with a dry cloth. Okay, I left this sit for a little over a minute. I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down with my clean dry cloth. Notice that I'm wiping with the grain. You may notice that I did get some of that spray up here in the unfinished area, and you can really see the difference in the two places. There we go. What a difference. Looks good.
Clean that expensive paintbrush with ease.
Well, I just finished up a little painting project here in the shop. I need to clean my brush now. I'm using latex paint, so I'm going to show you some steps and procedures to do a really good job cleaning this brush. This is an expensive brush. This particular one, it's a Purdy. Also, Worcester is a pretty big brand name, but this brush could last a lifetime if you clean it properly and take care of it between uses. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so here we are, back behind the tool bank. Got some background noise, so I apologize for that. I've got 3 5-gallon buckets that I've filled with fresh water. This first one that I'm going to use, I put a little bit of dishwashing detergent in it. Sometimes when you read the directions for latex paint and cleaning the brushes, it says warm soapy water. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that soapy water. Now, it's kind of warm. It's not as warm as it could be because I just got this out of a hose. Another tip that I found throughout the years is that if you put a little bit of household ammonia in with your water, that helps break down the latex paint a little bit, making the cleanup a little bit easier. This bucket is my second bucket. It's just straight water. This will be my last bucket, and it's just straight water. Okay, so to start out, got the brush. I want to clean it out. So the first step is to take my can of paint and to just kind of rub the sides and get off any excess paint. Then the next thing I'd like to do is when I want to get the lid on this paint, and sometimes paint accumulates in this little ring, I want to take my brush and kind of clean that up and get it back in the paint pot. Okay, that looks pretty good. And my brush is cleaned up pretty good. I'm going to put the top on that in just a second. And I got just a scrap piece of cardboard. And I'm going to take and just rub my brush on there to get out some more of the excess paint. It's very helpful to do that. The less paint that you have in your water, is the less paint that's going back into the earth. So I try to get as much off as I can in that manner. Okay, now we want to cover up this paint can. So I'm going to put the lid on, and cover it with a paper towel, just in case there's a little excess paint, it doesn't spurt back out at me. And then just use a rubber mallet. You can use a hammer too. I have a rubber mallet, so that's what I'm going to use. Just go all the way around. Now that's sealed up real good. We are ready for our next step. So in our next step, we're going to start in this first bucket. This bucket has a little bit of the soap in it. That's going to help break down this latex paint. I'm going to use a wire brush. They make a brush comb that you can get from Home Depot too, but I've always used a wire brush for this process, so I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to dip my brush down in the water, and I'm going to take my wire brush and I'm going to just brush it through the bristles. And I'm going to do this for a while. I'm going to go onto each side also. We'll flip it over into the other. I want to go through all four sides. Got this metal part on your brush. I like for it to be clean too. I like to do a little bit of rubbing with my wire brush underwater. No, I try to be careful not to hit the bristles going in this direction, but just on that barrel, try to get it clean, get that paint off of there. I'm going to have this brush for a long time, so I'm going to keep it clean. Okay, it's already starting to look pretty good. One of the things that the wire brush does is, you've probably seen this before, where up here towards the metal, it starts getting a little thick and cakey. This really helps break that down. I'm going to keep doing this in this bucket until I see no residual paint on my brush. So I pulled the brush out and it looks pretty clean on the outside. But you know what? I'm pulling these bristles apart and I'm still seeing quite a bit of paint on the inside. I'm going to do a little bit more. Just a little bit more with the wire brush. Spin it around some in that water too. Looks a lot better. There's still a little bit left in there, but that's going to come out in this next wash. Going to use this also. This is just straight water. I'm going to use the wire brush, and then I'm going to just simply take the brush and push it around up against the side of the bucket. Go back and forth with it. I can see that the water is getting a little bit of a white tint to it. So that is the paint that's coming out of the brush. Okay, now let's check inside. It's almost totally clean. I'm going to do this for just a few more moments. Rubbing against the bottom of the bucket and the side of the bucket. Spinning this around, pushing it down. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now I'm going to go to the last bucket. It's clean, fresh water. Do the same thing. I'm pushing my brush down against the bottom and the side. The water is staying pretty clean. I think we did it. No discoloration in that water. Okay, this last bucket, I didn't feel it quite as full as these other two. An old trick that I used to do for getting the water out of this brush, I take it and spin it in my hands, kind of like this. But I'm going to do it down inside this bucket. Okay, so now if you just recently purchased your brush and you still have that cover that came with it, reuse that cover now. Put it back around this brush and store it in that. Since I don't have the original cover that came with this brush, I'm going to take this piece of paper, I'm going to set it against the brush and do a few folds. I'm going to fold up, kind of on an angle like that. you can just use paper like a paper bag type paper. Hold this side up like this. And push down on that brush. Now we want to go against the side of the brush. We want to keep that brush in the shape that it originally came in. And my last fold will be down against the top. There we go. This is ready to store and will look good the next time I pull it out. It'll be a nice shape. It won't be bent over in any weird direction that'll make it difficult for me to paint. Just a quick extra bonus, if you're using a roller cage, I tend to use the roller cage and throw it away when I'm done. I do try to get out excess paint, and if I know I'm going to reuse it in maybe a couple hours or maybe the next day, I'll take plastic wrap and I'll wrap this really tight. Be sure to seal it around this metal. Then, when I'm ready to actually get rid of it, I'll take myself a grocery bag. I'll put this inside, hold it all around like that, and then just pull it off and throw that in the garbage, and your hands aren't too messed up.
WD-40 does that? What?
WD-40, that stands for water displacement. Took them 40 tries to get this solution just right. That was in 1953, and it was the Rocket Chemical Company that came up with the solution. They used it first on the outer skin of the Atlas missile, and that was to prevent rust and corrosion. Well, their employees thought this was some pretty awesome stuff. They started sneaking it home, and that's when the 2,000 uses of WD-40 started. We're not going to go through 2,000 uses. You can research that on your own if you like. Some of the common uses for WD-40 would be loosening bolts, grease removal, and gardening tools, giving them longevity. You can also fix some squeaky hinges with it too. I'm just going to show you a few things today that you can do with this WD-40 that you may not already know. I'm going to start with removing permanent marker from my whiteboard. I was real happy to find that use. Yep, that's Sharpie, permanent marker. We're going to do this. Oh yeah, it's working. You have to rub it for a second, but it's getting it off there. It did it. I don't think I see any ghosting or anything. I think it totally got it. Beautiful. Okay, this is one of my favorite uses. This is sticky and gunky, and this is from an old piece of tape and sticker that used to be on this wooden top. I'm going to spray this, and I'm going to let it sit on for about 2 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to wipe this clean. Okay, here we go. Got it. Beautiful. Hi, welcome to the wall behind my desk. This right here is crayon. WD-40 is supposed to remove crayon. Let's find out. Oh, wow. Hey, that worked. That worked good. Okay, that's a scuff mark on my floor. Let's see if the WD-40 will really get it out. I'm going to get some spray cleaner real quick and spray that clean. Okay, it looks like it worked. I want to get some spray cleaner first. Clean the WD-40 residue off. Really make sure. Give that a minute to dry, and we'll come back. So in this close-up, you can see that the scuff mark really is gone.
Thank you for watching, and join us for other ToolBank videos.
So I certainly learned a lot. Thank you, CJ, for that great training session. I will now open it up to the audience for some Q&A with our home hack expert. So we have one already up in there, which CJ, I will read to you. And it is a question. I myself was wondering, what is that drill, the brand that you used in the screw section?
Well, it was Black & Decker. It's a very basic little drill. I've had that for quite some time. It's small, it's compact. It's not super duper powerful, but it does a pretty good job and it's very efficient. And I think they're pretty affordable at Home Depot. So it's a Black & Decker. It does forward and reverse. And you could put any kind of a hex bit inside of it.
Great. So that was the only question we have right now, but we'll definitely give some time for people to add more into the Q&A. And I don't know if you have anything to add, CJ, while we're waiting, maybe.
Oh, I did bring a few props. That paintbrush that I wrapped, I've got it here. It's been in that paper ever since I wrapped it. So I thought I'm going to go ahead and unwrap it and just show you how it held its shape. I mean, that keeping the shape of a brush is important when you're using it. If you start getting into painting, you'll realize that if you got these little strands that pull out, it kind of messes with your painting. So that's one of the reasons why you want to use that cover that came with it, or at least make one of your own out of just a paper bag.
Very impressive. So we are getting a couple questions in. All right. So this one will call us back to one of our 2020 workshops, which I love. So what are the top basic tools every household should have?
That's a good question. And I have to say, one of my favorite tools in my home toolbox is having some kind of a little portable drill, cordless drill. I just go to it all the time. So any brand, it doesn't have to be expensive. And then your screwdrivers, in all honesty, for the Phillips screwdrivers, there's a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3. And that's examples of what the tips look like. And you should always make sure you use that right bit for the screw you're using. But this number 2 Phillips screwdriver is the most common. So you certainly want to have that. A basic hammer doesn't have to be expensive, just a claw hammer. 16 ounce or so wooden hammer handle is totally fine. And then according excuse me, according to what you're going to do and things you have around your house, some kind of wrenches. You could get a socket set, a basic socket set serves very well. You can get some open and closed wrenches maybe. You can get pliers. If you're using pliers on a nut, be cautious because you're likely to strip them out. It's always better to use a wrench that's the actual size of the nut you're trying to loosen, if that's what you're trying to do. And then to get you out of difficult situations, you can sometimes use the vice grips. These adjust by moving this little knurl on the end to different sizes there. And I find these to be kind of handy to have around the house too. So that's some very basics, but Jen, like you said, yeah, I think there's the video, I think is still online from last year's where we did talk about that very thing, some basic tools to have around your house.
Yes, and it was a great video by us being biased. It was very helpful. All right, we got a good number of questions in there. So I am going to read them off. And we got our first upvote question, which is fun. Any tips for a neat, clean caulking around a fiberglass shower stall?
That's a good one. You have to use silicone caulk, and you want to start out by taking out the old. You want to make sure you remove all that old caulk, and then you could use various tools. Be careful if you use anything that's metal. If you've got a fiberglass tub, it scratches very easily. So try to find things that are plastic that you can use to scrape. These days, I've even seen where they're starting to make plastic razor blades, believe it or not. That's something you might want to try to use in some of the difficult places. Getting that caulk out, then cleaning real good. Make sure there's no mold around there. Use a bleach and water solution. Clean it out. Use a toothbrush. Scrub it clean. Get it just as clean as can be. Then maybe take some alcohol to wipe and clean it off after you dry it with paper towels. And that helps to pull out some of the water and helps it to dry a little bit. If you can afford to let it dry for a couple hours, that would be the best thing to do. Then get your caulk gun, go with a small bead right in that corner. Make sure you use a small bead. And then what I like to do is I like to just wet my finger, use my finger and maybe do an inch or two at a time and just push it along gently, have a paper towel in my other hand, clean my finger off, wet it again, go back, just kind of keep doing that. The wetting your finger helps to keep the silicone from sticking to your finger. You just want to form the silicone. That's all you want to do with that. And I hope that answers your question. And wait, I have seen some tools out there before, and I think you can get them from Home Depot, probably in the section close to where in the painting and caulk section. It's like a little handle, and it's got this little triangular thing that's got a little plastic piece on it that you can also rub in the corner. I've never actually used one of those. I've always done with my finger, but I'd be willing to bet that particularly if you're not used to doing that process, it's probably a very good tool to use.
Great. All right, next up, let's see, is the sandpaper that you're using in the video called wet dry, or do you get wet regular sandpaper?
That particular sandpaper that I was using, yes, indeed, it is called wet dry sandpaper. And there actually is another option to that too. You guys have probably seen pads like this before. You see them, I've seen them like for kitchen use, automotive use, various things that you can use these pads for. If you don't want to use wet dry sandpaper, you can use one of these pads. And I tried both methods, and I actually kind of liked using this. The different colors of these is a various grit. I used this brownish color on some of mine, and I felt pretty good about it. And that sandpaper I was using in the video, it was 800 grit. And to be honest with you, I felt like that was a little bit too fine. I probably could have done better with what I've had and got it in closer match to what was already there with maybe a 500 grit. And I've seen where you can use 4 or 5 all the way up to 800, or try these pads. And the important thing is keep it going with the grain, Keep it going in one direction. If you start going like this, you're going to end up going in a circle, and you're going to see every one of those little circles is going to make little J's in places, and it won't look real good. And you have to be a little bit patient, but it sure does make a difference.
So next up, we have a compliment that said that the class was very good. So thank you, Ramona, for that compliment, and for CJ for putting that together. So she asked if you can show us how to sharpen a knife, but I'm sure you do not have those tools handy. So maybe if you just have any tips that you can share.
Are you saying sharpen a knife?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And I can say that what you'd want to use will vary according to what you're sharpening. If you're talking about kitchen knives, get a kitchen knife sharpener. And I mean, and there's so many different ones out there, and really and truly, just even some of the basic ones work just fine. If you're talking about sharpening something that's maybe a lopper or something like that, what I tend to use is a metal file. I don't have one with me to show you, but imagine a metal file, not too big, basic, and probably medium-ish in its coarseness, medium to fine. And just keep in mind, whatever you're sharpening, keep in mind that the blade has either one or two edges that are actually getting sharpened, that are actually on a bevel. I mean, if it's like a kitchen knife, typically it's got two sharpened edges, kind of like that. Now there are some garden tools that have only one bevel, one side, and in that case you would only want to sharpen that one side. And this side here that's flat, it's very important to not put a bevel on it. That side needs to maintain its flatness. So if it's a one-sided thing that you're sharpening, try to look real closely at it. Try to match that bevel with whatever you're using to sharpen it. And try to go in one direction with whatever you're using to sharpen it. And feel on the back side, you'll end up feeling a little burr on it. That means that you've removed enough metal and it's gotten sharp. Then remove that burr with your file and you'll end up with a nice sharp blade. And I have had, if you look on the ToolBank website, I have offered some sharpening classes before. I'm not sure if we have a video on that or not, but that is something that I occasionally offer.
Maybe for next year workshop, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next question, I think I may have missed it when you were talking about the shower. So is it okay to use the tubes that don't require a caulk gun? And if there's any pros or cons alongside of that?
It absolutely is okay to do that. If you don't want to have a caulk gun taking up space in your house, you don't have to have it these days. I mean, they are selling a lot of tubes these days that you can just squeeze, kind of like toothpaste. And the pros and cons are, if you do have the caulk gun, you're just kind of squeezing that handle, and that it's that same motion every time that you use it. But if you're using the tube, I mean, sometimes it might be, you might get a little low in the tube and you have to squish it all down, maybe start folding it a little bit, and it'll work. You might have to be a little bit more patient with it. It will work totally fine.
Great. Alrighty, so moving on to WD-40, who knew it had 2,000 uses? Should it be spot tested on a wall before trying to get marks off? For instance, if you have flat paint, could it possibly leave a stain?
Absolutely. I will. Yeah. I'll tell you that I didn't know if that was going to work, to be honest with you, when I did that. And that really was the wall behind my desk. And I really did take a crayon and write on it. And it really took it off. And the paint that we used on that wall was a paint. And it was a little bit on the higher end one. and it wasn't flat. I think it was like the satiny. And when I finished, it did not leave. I was worried that it might. I accepted when I did that I might just be touching that paint up and repainting, but I didn't have to. It came off and looked fine. But I absolutely would recommend that if you can find a place to test it, that's maybe behind a piece in a closet, behind a piece of furniture or something, please do that. Because I'd hate to say, oh no, you'll be fine, and then you're repainting your room. So do test it.
Good advice. Looking for some more good advice that I know you'll give. There are so many different types, sizes of screws and nails, as we know. Do you have recommendations for basic sizes that we should have on hand, or do you recommend just buying them per project as needed?
That's a good question, because I actually do keep a little mini stock and that I have in my closet. I've got one of those little containers that's got some spaces in it, and I have some all-purpose screws I keep laying around because they're called all-purpose screws and they're just really handy. And I keep anywhere from 1.25 inches to 3 inches. But the 1.5 inches, 1 5/8 are real common size, and they do for many, many things. And buying like a pound of those would last you a very, very long time, more than likely. You might even be able to share them with some friends and create your own little containers yourself. And for nails, common uses that I've had around the house, you know, they've got these little wire nails. They're really thin, 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 and small, small, small. And I have found that I often use those a bit around the house for tacking a little thing in and hanging a little something on. I find those to be handy. As far as finished nails go, maybe a number 4 finish, but really, I find if I keep some basic screws around the house, that's my preference. That's my go-to, and what I will go for first before reaching for a nail.
Of course, you have your favorite sizes. Alrighty, so we have 2 more questions for now, but definitely if there's any last minute, make sure you add those in there. So what is your best guidance for getting rid of mold? That is a great question.
That is a great question, and I have to answer this with caution because the mold issue is kind of a hot button issue these days, and certain molds apparently can make people not feel good. And I'm going to assume that you're referring to mold that you might have in the bathroom, where we were talking about removing the caulk, and it's very common to have a little mold residue around. And really, gosh, the bleach solution is just so good. At least 10% bleach and water. And honestly, what I used to do is I took an old toothbrush and a little cup of water and then a cup of bleach. And I would dip the toothbrush in bleach and I would just really scrub on that mold and really get it clean. Get it totally removed. Let it dry really good before you put anything over top of it. And if it's a painted surface, put some kind of kills or some kind of a primer, light kills over top of it before you put your paint coat back on top of it. I hope that answered that question. If you've got a room that's full of mold, that's not what I'm talking about. That's something where you might want to consider hiring a professional, where it gets into affecting your health.
Probably when in doubt, call a professional. All right, so last question before we wrap up. Do you recommend reusing roller brushes, or is it better to get a new one every time you paint?
I go with new one. And I tried to throw that into the video, that the roller covers. If I know that I'm going to be using that same paint a couple hours later after that wall dries, I won't throw it away. I'll wrap it in plastic. And I've even heard of people putting them in the freezer. I've never done that, so I don't know about that technique, but I've heard of it. But even if you do that, you still have to wrap it, and it's not going to last forever, just for a day or two. And if you're gonna throw it away, you still want to try to get some of the excess paint out of it. Some of you have probably seen this tool. It's called a 5-in-1 tool, painter's tool. And this part of it right here, the function of that is for cleaning roller covers. Just kind of take it and squishing down it to get some of the paint out of it. And you can squish it out and put it back into the bucket. What I've found is make sure you're using a good quality roller cover if you do that. That's not losing a lot of fur, because sometimes I have with a cheaper one, I've done that, and I've ended up having residual, the fuzzy stuff in my paint. And then the next time I went and painted, I was sorry I did that. So beware of that. But I find that it's even if you try to clean one of the roller covers, chances are you're not going to get it clean enough that the next time you use it, you're going to want to use it. So you might as well just give it up and buy a multi-pack when you get your roller covers.
Great. All right, we have one last question that snuck in here, and many thank yous coming from participants, CJ. It's been really great. So we will wrap up with this last question. If you have a best practice for fixing dents in wood floors.
Dents in wood floors. Okay, so I'm going to make some assumptions here. I'm going to assume that you're talking about natural wood, probably hardwood floors. If you're talking about any kind of a laminate type flooring, floating floor, that's anything that's not natural. No, I have no suggestion for you, unfortunately. Try to replace that piece maybe if you're fortunate enough to have a replacement piece. I've heard about I've tried to do some things in the past where I've had some dents in some of my wood with moisture and heat to try to bring the wood back a little bit. But when you're talking about a hardwood floor, that's really difficult. Hi, Tristan. And it can be tough. You might have to sometimes you might have to say, gosh, I'm going to have to wait until the next time I refinish this floor and fill it. So that may not be what you wanted to hear. And I guess in the past, I haven't had very good luck with trying to get dents out of my wood floors. And I have tried that heating, that warm water, sometimes it'll open the grains up and help them to kind of go back to where they originally were. Might be worth a try, but you're also talking about wood that's got a finish on it. So it's a tough one.
Maybe we'll do some experiments and bring that in next year's workshops
Yeah.
as well. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And of course, thank you, CJ, for that wonderful video and robust Q&A. I always learn so much when you do your trainings. And thank you all for attending. Like I said earlier, if you want to see any of our workshops from 2020 or register for a live workshop, you can visit our website at beltline.org/empower. And we hope to see you back here on May 20th to learn about outdoor preventative maintenance, things to help your roof, all the good stuff with PRC services. And if you could just take a couple minutes at the end of the workshop to fill out our survey, it really does help inform our programming. You'll get that in your browser or via email. And with that, thank you all again for joining, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening and take care.